Hey everyone, CJ here. I'm taking a little break from the How to DM series because I would like to tell you about the tale of Existentialist Crisis Steve. This is a true story and is also part of my formative experience as a dungeon master. But before I get right into it, I have a little announcement to make. This video is sponsored by the publisher of Knights of Pen and Paper 2, Paradox Interactive. This game is practically a simulation of my past life as a long-suffering DM in retro pixel art graphic. It is a turn-based RPG that simulates the pen and paper role-playing game combat style, with tons of tabletop RPG in-jokes. You can help support the channel by downloading the free game using the link in the description section below. I completed the main storyline without spending a single cent, and there is still tons of quests and dailies left for me to do, so it's good fun in my book. I was actually reminded of Steve because of this game's opening sequence. It starts with the DM having to deal with a problem player, a power gamer who's demolishing the Tarrasque with his hacks gear. As for Steve, he is not the power gamer because he's never played pen and paper RPG ever. He is an utter complete newbie. He played lots of board games though, so I thought he was going to pick it up pretty quickly. But boy was I wrong. I'm going to tell you the story as I keep playing. I've got a file with the higher leveled characters, but I'm starting a new game to show you how the game works. I'll have an easier time starting with characters that can do AoE attacks. The Hunter and Mage are pretty great combination at the start. The Lab Rat is just the best choice for a mage in my opinion. They also get powerful single attack spells that's going to get you through the later part of the game. Now back to the story. This happened a few years ago when I was introducing D&D to a few of my friends, and Steve was invited. Steve is a good bloke, he plays a lot of board games, he organizes game nights, and I would go to some of his event nights too. But unfortunately, he just never had the opportunity to play D&D. At that time, D&D was getting a revival. 5th edition was just released, the rules are streamlined, and it's beginner friendly. I was itching to get new converts. So I invited him and a few other interested parties for their first ever game session. At that time, I was running the first chapter of the Lost Mine of Phandelver, a stable for newbies. This is what's expected to happen during the adventure. A ragtag band of rookies is tasked by their dwarven employer to deliver an ox cart of supplies to the town of Phandalin. The dwarf and his bodyguard rode ahead. Later on, the players will discover their dead horses along the road and then they get ambushed by goblins. After piecing the clues together, they can follow the goblin track to a cave and in there, they can find the bodyguard and save him. The dwarf is nowhere to be seen. Dum dum dum, proceed to chapter 2. So after selecting their pre-gen characters and a bit of introduction between the players, events progressed as predicted. They were ambushed by the goblins and emerged victorious with some minor bruises. Presented with obvious clues and suspects to investigate, I asked them the classic D&D question that has led countless new players down the rabbit hole of D&D fandom. Now, what would you like to do? I investigate the horse's corpse. I look for the goblin's tracks. Deliver the supplies to town. Oh, Steve. Oh wait, he is serious. This is our job. That's what we are supposed to do. Before them lies mystery, a hint of danger, and the seed of adventure. But nope, he's not biting. In D&D, you can be anything you want, and he chose to be a bureaucrat. Okay. The rest of the party did what he suggested, because new players tend to follow the first person who comes up with a course of action, so they continued to make their way to town. There they discovered that they were unable to complete the assignment because they needed their employer or bodyguard signature to seal the deal. Psst, it's a hint! Find your employer and his bodyguard. But why? Oh, what do you mean why? Why do I have to do this assignment? Because that's the premise. Your character has taken the job. But why this job? It's not this job specifically. Your character needs money to live, like normal people, Steve. So do I have to go find the dwarf? No, this is D&D. You can do whatever you want. We can drop this questline if you are not interested in it. No, don't drop it. Through his expression, I can see the clockwork ticking inside his head. He is experiencing a culture shock playing in a tabletop role-playing game. You can do whatever you want. It's a very powerful statement, and it can take a bit of time to process because when someone is given complete freedom and that person is not used to it, it feels as if they are presented with millions and millions of choices at once, making it almost impossible to choose a course of action. So I can do anything? Yes, I said. Then I expected him to ask the usual newbie questions. But how do I win? How can I know I have made the right choices? I would then proceed to explain to him that D&D is a cooperative social game. You win not just by completing quests, but also by entertaining everyone around the table with your roleplay. Can I kill the townsfolk and get his money? Yes, but there will be consequences. They won't be carrying much money on them anyway. Is there a village chief? There is a town mayor. What if I go to the mayor's house, kill him and take his money? Alright, you are in front of the mayor's home. She has answered the door and is now standing right before you. Is this what you want, Steve? Is she alone? Her grandchild is watching you from inside the house. Is there going to be consequences if I kill the mayor? Yes. How do you know? What do you mean, how do I know? I am the DM. The kid will most likely report you to the constable if he sees you kill his grandma. But how do you know he would do that? I am the DM. I decide what the monsters and NPC do. How do we know that you're not cheating or just making it up? What? I think I lost it at that point. Maybe I had lost it earlier, but I was just too baffled by his questions to realize it. I mean, how are we supposed to know that that's what the boy really wanted to do? When those 4 goblins attacked us, how do we know that you didn't add a couple of extra goblins in there? Wow, just wow. I was left completely speechless. I didn't know how to answer that question at the time. I was just too flabbergasted by it. Besides, why does my character need all this money? What is it for? Do I need it so desperately that I have to kill an innocent old woman and her grandson? Disregarding the fact that he is inventing his character's trait and personality himself, and robbing and murdering the mayor was his own idea, what he said actually made me think, why do we let DMs get away with so many things? But I didn't have the time to think. So I just said, it's just a game, Steve. Let's go back to the original quest and save your employer and bodyguard, alright? It goes without saying that everything kinda went downhill from that point on. It didn't help that he refused to tell me how much hit points he had left during combat, because he thinks that it's unfair that I didn't tell him how much hit points the goblins have left. By the time the game ended, the players had a modicum of fun. They went home with weak smiles on their faces, and I went home with that question lingering in my mind. Why can DMs get away with making all these things up? At their whim, kingdoms and legions appear out of thin air. 2 orcs can become 4, and they can create endless supplies of treasures to dole out. How can a group of people willingly gather to nominate someone to be the virtual gods of their shared imaginary world? Why would anyone play in a game that's so rigged against them? It is utter lunacy. It took me a while to figure this out, but the best games I've ever had always been played with some of my closest friends, people who believe that I will treat them right and be honest even when it's inconvenient. I realized that being a great DM is not just a matter of doing voices, creating wicked combat set pieces, or developing fascinating NPCs. The most important part of being a DM, before all that can happen, is to be someone your players can trust. Someone they trust to be fair, someone they trust to show them a good time. It is not easy to become that person, especially when you are playing with a group of strangers. To become a great DM takes time. You can only become great once you have established that kind of trust with your players. And everyone is different. You can't be a great DM for everyone, but at least you can try to be one for the players you are playing with. Alright everyone, that's the story of Existentialist Crisis Steve, and how I learned an important lesson from a newbie player that drove me bonkers. Here is a question I would like to see you guys answer. How would you have reacted if someone like Steve is playing in a game you dungeon master? Before I end the video, let me give you another tip for Knights of Pen and Paper 2. If you want to have an easier time with later quests, make a rich kid elf ninja character once you have unlocked the ninja class. His smoke bomb can stun almost all enemies on screen at once, and having really high senses attribute means that he almost always goes first in battle. Mass stunlock your way to victory. Remember that you can download the free game using the link in the description below. CJ, over and out.